welcome to MCTV's Let's Talk. I'm Mike Stanzillas, Vice President of Membership and Government Affairs for the Morris County Chamber of Commerce. And today we are truly lucky to have one of the great leaders in the Morris County and actually the nation's business community, and that's Jack Miller of Solix. So Jack Miller is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Solix, as well as a member of the company's board of directors. He also currently serves on the board of directors right here at the Morris County Chamber of Commerce and is an executive committee member of the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce, where he chairs the state's healthcare committee. Now, Jack was elected to Chief Executive Officer in 2014 at Solix. He joined Solix in 2001, and prior to assuming his current position, he served as the Chief Operating Officer. Now, before coming to Solix, Jack had more than 20 years of experience in a variety of senior strategic planning, business development, and organizations with positions at Bell Atlantic, 9X, which is now Verizon, and Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEC. He earned a bachelor's degree in economics from Harvard College and an MBA from Northeastern University. He's also completed executive education at Harvard Business School and the Duke School of Business. So Jack, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you. I got to have you talk to my kids. That was kind of overwhelming, but thank you.
Yeah. Your kids need to know who you are so they can watch this.
I'll have you tell them, not me.
Is that Dad, right? All right, so let's dive right into this. You are in a leadership position for this really large organization. There are so many people out there who aspire towards that corner office or something in that world, moving up the ladder and getting that position in executive or leadership. So, let's just cut to some of the mistakes, because it's, your career path is very interesting, but what are some of the mistakes that you've made along the way that you've learned from on your career path? And what can you tell us about those mistakes in your career path?
It's interesting, Michael. When I think of that, I don't like to think I've made mistakes. Now, not that I don't make mistakes, but you learn from everything. Every decision you make, hopefully you learn. But the mistakes have really come from, as many as I can think, not trusting my gut. And that's not only in work, but in my personal life. You've got to listen to your gut. You got to trust yourself, and don't be afraid when that tells you to do something that may not be where you think you should go or where others want you to go. But when I look back, that's been the one theme around decisions that I kind of wish I made differently, but has been not listening to my gut.
Yeah, listening to your gut and taking that chance, right? As Malcolm Gladwell describes, it's called thin slicing from that book, Blink, which is an outstanding read if you haven't read it. So there's a lot of younger people out there in the world that aspire towards what you're doing. Aside from trusting your gut, is there anything else that you can share with them to help them get to that corner office?
Yeah, I guess a few things, and I'm not sure, the corner office is all that they think it is. Trust me, it's many sleepless nights. But I think in terms of helping people manage and advance their careers, there are a couple things. One is your career progression is not linear. You're going to, bounce around. You may, take a step backwards, step forwards, whatever. But, I think the biggest thing to do is get yourself in a position where you like what you do, where you like the people you work with, and then make decisions. I see a lot of people who have this fear of failure or fear of making a mistake. And I think it's important that people understand that, everybody makes mistakes. But I think the key thing is, if you make a mistake, how quickly do you recognize it? And then how quickly and how well do you compensate? And for me, that's what makes, differentiates employees. And I really believe that's also what makes and differentiates companies, right? Because every company makes mistakes. It's how you deal with them and how you overcome them, and making sure that you kind of own up to them and then you move forward. So, in terms of advice, I would say get yourself in a good spot, enjoy what you're doing, and then make things happen.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you mentioned the word fear, the fear of making mistakes, right? And that really talks to risk or risk tolerance. And people in leadership, they really have to manage risk, right? And that fear freezes people. So talk about your theory, your thoughts on the risks, because you taking a risk at the position you're in impacts a lot more people than if you were just starting your career. So what are your thoughts and feelings on risk and some experiences you've had throughout your career?
Yeah, a few things. One is, I said you got to work with people you enjoy, people you respect. And I think in terms of managing risk, I think you need input from people. I mean, part of managing risk is getting different opinions and understanding consequences, and not everyone's going to have the same opinion, right? So you've got to really take that input and then again listen to your gut. I mean, in my case, I've taken risks in my career in the sense that they were job risks. Very early in my career, I took a job. It was a very high profile job with one of the Bell companies, and I'll never forget. After about 2 weeks in the position, my boss at the time, who was an executive vice president of the company, put his arm around me and he says, "Mr. Miller, these high visibility positions can be career limiting as well." And I kind of laughed and, took a deep breath, left the office and just made sure I did a better job. So, in turn, there's risks in everything you do, right? But I think the other thing people have to understand, there's risk in doing nothing, right? And so you gotta, weigh what's in front of you, weigh your options, listen to people you trust, listen to your gut, and then pull the trigger and go forward.
That's incredible. Yeah, the risk in doing nothing. I really have. I've heard that in so many different ways, but I've never heard it that way. So I really appreciate that answer. So we're talking really about leadership, right? I mean, that's what this is. Your life's experience has led you to being this great leader. Obviously putting together teams. What your leadership style is. Those are all obvious questions. The obvious answer is, how important is a good team? The answer is yes. That's a boring question, but let's get to your team, right? You had to put together a team around you, or inherit a team, or modify the team you inherited to get it to where you wanted to see match with your style, your vision. So what are some of the lessons you've learned? What are some of the techniques or things you've done from in terms of a leadership standpoint, putting together your teams?
Well, it's interesting. The position I'm in now, I was part of the leadership team of the prior CEO, and he really had a culture of people working together, and I think that's just so smart. And so I liked all the people I worked with. So then I get put into this position, and all of a sudden, the people I were peers with, they were now reporting to me. Um, and it just worked out in a way that some of those people were just at the age that they retired, and I was able to, fill in some spots with people who, quite frankly, we brought in from outside the business because our business was changing and we needed some different skill sets and some different perspectives. And as I built the team, my team, first of all, you've got, even in my position, you've got to work with people you respect. And I've been so lucky because, the team I have now, we get along great. We're all different personalities, different perspectives, different ideas on what we should or shouldn't do in a particular situation. But we just all have figured out a way to work together.
Mhm.
And to me, that's important. And my leadership style, I think, is much less hands-on than directive. So I look to those people to make decisions and to help move the business forward. Because quite frankly, if you I once had a boss who said the biggest job she had was to hire good people. And if she did that, her job got easier. And that is just so true. If you hire good people, build a good team, work together, the job of CEO becomes easy.
Yeah, that's such a great piece of advice your boss gave to you. I had a boss that said that to me once as well. It is a great piece of advice. But, when you're talking about this, your team and the hands-off style, that really takes a lot of trust, right? And there's risk involved in trust. So I think for you, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you have to take a leap to trust them. I guess that's all I'm asking you is tell us about your version of trust with them.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. My hands-off approach has come from, early in my career, I was, quite frankly, at a company that was going out of business. It was a startup company, and I needed to find a job. And so I went to Digital Equipment Corporation in the mid 80s. It was a computer company that some may remember, great company. And I went and I remember my wife saying, well, what are you going to do there? And I said, I really don't know, but we just bought our first house and, I was going to get a paycheck. And I came out of the Bell system, which was very prescriptive. There was a manual on how to do everything. And, there wasn't really much creativity. And I remember I got to digital and I sat in my cubicle for about 2 weeks waiting for someone to tell me what to do, what my job was. And after about 2 weeks, I kind of figured out no one was coming and I had to figure it out. And as a result of that, I identified a couple of projects, nothing that was rocket science, but just a couple of things that needed to be done. And I took that upon myself. I got the funding for them and I went forward. And I was just so determined that because this was mine, I was going to be successful with it. And what I learned there is if someone told me, go do these 2 or 3 things, I would have said, yeah, okay. And I would have done it. And, not with the energy and the resolve I had because it was mine. And that taught me that if you can make certain things, people own them because they're theirs, they're going to be more successful. So that's led me to really let people figure it out. Now, obviously, there are different, projects of different importance. So, not every project is going to, make or break a company's, financials for a year or whatever. So, what I've learned is you've got to, what I say, separate the mice from the elephants and make sure, in my role, I follow the big things, but also, encourage people to take on responsibility and do some things and create some things, some opportunities for themselves. So for me as a CEO, it's really understanding which are the truly impactful things going on in the organization and make sure I keep an eye on them.
Yeah, and it's really amazing. You're empowering your people as well by giving them this trust. So, Solix, let's talk about Solix right now. Give us an overview of what Solix does, because we've gotten to learn a lot about you in the past couple of minutes. So tell us about your company.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael. So Solix is, have more than 20 years experience working in the business process outsourcing sector. And, that means that we really go in and work for government agencies or, commercial accounts, operationalizing processes and systems to help them, deliver services to their clients. And most of our work revolves around determining applicant eligibility for some form of product or service. So again, we've got 20 plus years experience. Our business is split pretty much half and half between the private and public sector. And lately, we've been doing a lot of work in the coronavirus relief area. So we've got call centers now helping schedule people for COVID vaccines. We're doing some small business grant programs, and I'm just really proud of the way that we have been able to step up and quickly scale and deliver some services, given the environment we're working in right now.
Yeah, it sounds like you were able to, use the most overused word of 2020, and that is pivot. But, being nimble and being able to do that and also having a platform that you already had enabled you to really step up and help a lot of people. So this next question is kind of cliche, Jack. I apologize in advance, but I love it anyway. What is it that keeps you awake at night?
Wow. Well, it's interesting. It changes, right? It's always something different. About a year ago, or probably 11 months ago, what kept me up at night was what happens if, we have call centers, in a couple locations across the country. What happens if we get, the virus comes in and wipes out half of our workforce? The answer to that question was, well, the business would have been in big trouble. So I really spent a month and a half worrying about how do we get people to work remotely. And quite frankly, a year ago, we had very few people working remotely. And today we've got over 1,700 people working remotely, which is just, I think, a phenomenal accomplishment on the part of our team. But in general, what I worry about is growth. Growing the company, getting new business, because growth takes care of everything. I mean, when you talk about company culture, company issues, morale, whatever, what I've found is if a company is growing, that makes up for an awful lot. What I see is when a company is, declining or really struggling, that's when you have issues that quite frankly are very difficult to address. So right now we had a situation where we lost a very large contract. 2 years ago, we were pretty much on that, the side of the decline. But now we grew last year and we're off to a great start this year. So I just see the difference, in the employees, and, I don't see them in person as much anymore, but just when we have, video calls or whatever, you can just hear it in their voice, the excitement, and it just makes such a difference. So, that's really what I worry about is, keeping, is growing.
It sounds like, although that's what keeps you awake at night, that growth has motivated and stimulated your employees. So, it's worth it to be woken up in the middle of the night a couple of times with this sort of anxiety, but then you get to see the pleasures of your employees enjoying this growth. So.
And what's been so great, you talked about the team earlier. The decisions that my team has made in terms of building the teams under them and watching how these people have grown and developed and now have executed unbelievable. I couldn't have imagined we could have been doing what we're doing today. I wouldn't imagine that a year ago. So you talk about, building a good team and why does that matter? I mean, I think the past year is in spades, just how much it does matter. And, how much, quite frankly, trusting the people that work for me, they've done a phenomenal job, managing the environment, but more importantly, putting the people in the places to make a difference and make us successful. So, teams, it goes without saying, right, that building a good team is good.
Yeah, yeah. And now you've touched on growth two kinds, the financial growth and also the growth of your teams, right? The growing their responsibility, their empowerment. So it's a great story to tell. And so last question, and it's kind of a fun question. If you were to describe your job and what you do to a child or a teenager in just a few sentences, what would you say to them, Jack?
Few sentences to it. Okay. Well, I have basically three groups of people that I need to please, right? I have our customers, I have our employees, and I have our board, and which is also representing the shareholders, right? So you get three groups of people. And, my job is to make sure they're all happy. And, sometimes, you can't make, the old saying, you can't make everybody happy, but that's really, I think the job of a CEO is to ensure that, if your customers are happy and if your employees are happy, your shareholders are going to be happy, right? I think it's that simple.
And that is what that question was designed to do, simplify the answer, and you did a marvelous job of doing it. So this is Jack Miller, and he is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Solix. If you want to get to know Solix, trust your gut, as Jack said, and reach out to Solix and learn more about them. It's a great company. Jack, it's been an honor to speak with you today. Thank you.
Michael, thanks for the opportunity. I have enjoyed this. Thank you.
And thank you to all of our great Chamber of Commerce members. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.